My name is Yvette Summerhour. I'm a retired special agent with United States Secret Service. I remember one day my mother was ironing, and I must have been 5 or 6, and she was crying. And I remember asking her, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "They killed a good man." At the time, I didn't realize what she meant, but later on I realized it was the funeral for President Kennedy, and that I knew that I wanted to contribute in a way that my mother would never be in that position to cry again. Years later, I found out to do that, I had to become a Secret Service agent. I had the opportunity to work with several presidents, from President Ronald Reagan up until President Obama. But I was assigned for 5 years and 1 week to President Clinton. When I first started out, I was with President Clinton, and then I was assigned to Mrs. Clinton, and then I was assigned to Chelsea. One Saturday, when I was on the president's detail and I was assigned to Chelsea Clinton, she was with her girlfriends, and they decided they wanted to go down to downtown DC. There was some big event going on, and they wanted to go to the mall, and Chelsea wanted to ride the train with her friends. We had been on several trips where Chelsea knew how to dress and put her hair up in a cap so no one could recognize her. So what I didn't know at the time was, once you get in the train and you go underground, you have no radio contact. So since I was a supervisor on that day, I said, "Okay, I'll go with Chelsea." And I said, "The rest of you meet us with the motorcade down on the end. And whatever happens on the train, I'll handle it." So Chelsea gets on there with two of her girlfriends, and she's got her hair up because she has such curly hair. She has her hair up in a baseball cap. And I take my earpiece out, and I had on, my lapel pin. And I take the lapel pin off. So it looks like I'm there with, 3 girls, and we're riding. So the trains get more crowded and more crowded as we take on more people. So we're having to stand up, and I'm standing behind Chelsea holding on to a rail. So these girls get on, and I see them look at Chelsea, and they look again, and I hear this one girl whisper, "I think that's Chelsea Clinton." And I think, "Oh, crap." And so the other girl goes, "I know, I think that's Chelsea." But then they look around, they do like a 360, look at me, and of course I'm looking at them like, "What are you looking at?" They keep looking, and then they look back at each other and they said, "It can't be Chelsea. She doesn't have any Secret Service men." When the train stopped and they started to get off, there was a part of me that wanted to just go, "Hey, there are other Secret Service people other than men. There are women in the Secret Service." And of all the stories that I recall, the one that really sticks out, and there were many that were memorable, but the one that really meant a lot to me was when I was with Mrs. Clinton and actually assigned to Chelsea, and we went to Africa on a trip. I remember I was with Chelsea and Mrs. Clinton, and we all went to Senegal, and part of the trip and part of the tour we were on meant that we went to this island called the Island of No Return, which, from all intents and purposes, was where most of the Africans were placed on ships and sent to the United States or elsewhere. And I remember our tour guides were from Senegal, and they were taking us around and showing us the different rooms and how they would separate out families, mothers and fathers, and then how they would separate mothers and children. And they were telling us stories about how the mothers would be assaulted, and sometimes even the daughters. And I remember that we then went and we looked at this door that was so expansive. And when you open the door, it just looks out on water, because that's where the ships would pull up to get the Africans to put them on, to take them to other countries. And at that point, it hit me that probably my ancestors had gone through this door at one point or another. And the tour guides would tell you that some people were so against getting on the ships that they would jump into the water, and the water was shark infested, and that they would prefer to die in their country versus going to another country. So we're on this tour, and it just really got emotional. So I asked one of the guys, I said, could you just take my place for a minute? I just need to step out. So I went out, composed myself, because I was like, Yvette, this isn't about you. Just get yourself together, get back in there, you've got a job to do. So I go back in, we finish the tour, get back in the boats, get back to the hotel, and I'm standing outside Mrs. Clinton's room. Now keep in mind, I wasn't with Mrs. Clinton, I was actually with Chelsea. And Mrs. Clinton walks out into the hallway, and she looks at me and she says, I hear it was pretty rough for you today. And I said, it was. I said, but, I said, it's over. I've forgotten about it. And she said, don't ever forget, because if you forget, it could always happen again. And that stayed with me, that not only she was right, but also the fact that someone in her position would take the time to come out and check on somebody on her detail to make sure that I was okay. She didn't have to do that. I mean, it was my job to protect her and Chelsea, but that she would take that time and come out and make sure I was okay, really, for me, said a lot about her, and it told me that she really did care. When I started in the Secret Service, I did not see many women. When I hired on, there may have been, and this is an outside guess, I would say 5 other African American female special agents when I hired on. For the Caucasian women, there were probably 25 or 30. So there weren't a lot of female Secret Service agents. By the time I retired, there were 3 African American special agent supervisors, of which I was one. I would say now the percentage of women, I'm not sure about the numbers, but I would say there are probably 150 women who are special agents. And that's me looking from the outside, just looking in as now. That is not to say that we are not as capable, because all of the physical fitness that we have to do in the Secret Service, from the push-ups to the pull-ups to the sit-ups to the swimming, is all the same, and it is looked at from your age and from your weight. So we are required to do the same physical fitness, and in some instances, it is definitely a plus to have a female Secret Service agent, because we have lots of female protectees, and there are lots of instances where people don't look and expect to see a female agent. So it's definitely to our advantage.